putting up with me again. I hope that this talk gives you some of the background of the work that we've done. So, I finished first of all the Alzheimer's story because these spots that we noticed, if you remember, that were discovered to be Alzheimer's, turned up in a breast cancer patient. And I said to the lady who'd given me the samples, "What do you know about this woman? What do these spots mean?" And she said, "I know she's old." Well, that was a big help. But we tried all the old possibilities, and Alzheimer's came up as a possibility. It was then followed by 100 samples from West Australia group that had a big hospital over there for Alzheimer's. And finally, we looked at an Alzheimer's mouse. And you can see that this poor little mouse was only a few weeks old, but it was bred to get Alzheimer's. And the people in Western Australia who grew these mice, after I decided that some were Alzheimer's and some were not, actually they did the pathology on their brains and discovered that they tested positive to Alzheimer's. So here we have a picture that I put up here especially in case any of you are thinking of going home and doing this work. That ring there is not a real ring. How do I know? Because it's too intense. All rings are less intense than the order, 7th order, and that is stronger. So why did we get this really false ring? Well, because a mouse hair is infinite, it's very, very small, and trying to tie it at both ends left us with virtually no hair and a lot of movement of the hair while we were trying to tie it up, and that's therefore the resulting ring, which if you don't mount your hair properly, you will get all the time. So, there are our plaques again. And I'm going backwards. I'm sorry. Those were our results. Now, these mice were supplied to Western Australia by GlaxoSmithKline, and when we actually told them the results, and they were all correct, they said that this is impossible because no other test can see these changes before they're 12 months old, because that's when the brain is actually changed. So we can pick up Alzheimer's long before the change occurs in the brain, which means there's time to fix it. That's for you medicos to do. Oh, sorry. But this one came from a sample from Russia. And it was a lady who was in her 20s. And I said to them, "What's this lady? We can't be right. It can't be Alzheimer's." Yes, because there's the same build-up of beta amyloid in a pregnant lady in her 3rd trimester. Because at that stage, the bone structure is being developed and they need beta amyloid. I'm wondering if that's not another area that could be followed on. Oh, sorry, I'm sorry about this. You can put it down to age. They're all the people who helped me. So, why did I start this in the beginning? I was very happily doing simple crystal structures, and I used to go and get anti-carcinogenic drugs and come down and find out how they worked in the body. And I went up one day to get some more. And the pathologist at the hospital said, "You know, if you want to do something useful, you could find out about these changes which occur in a pathology slide. I said, I know nothing about pathology. He said, well, here's your first lesson. And he proceeded with 1,000 slides, which I learnt some things in. And amazingly enough, he had at the time a sample where the lady had been sent home from another town as having no breast cancer. And he said to me, they should have known, because here is this elastotic tissue, which, why is it pink then? It's not elastotic tissue, but that's what it's called in medical books. It's actually altered collagen. And it's collagen where all the fat, this nice gold part, has been excluded. And if you try to dig a hypodermic needle into it, it won't go in. It's like one of those really tough steaks. If there's no fat in the steak, it'll be tougher than if there's a lot of fat. So, we have this elastotic tissue, fat, and inside that is the cancer. So he said, you could find out for me what that is. And I said to him, you've got to be kidding. I can't crystallise that. So he said, look, I'm sure you can find a way. And this was another slide. He said, see, these elastotic areas should not be on the same slide, his pathology slides. And he said, therefore, you should be able to do something, because look, all these collagens are lined up over here. That's what you need, lined up parallel lines. So he said, go ahead. So I went to Grenoble and I talked to Andrew Miller, who's the specialist in collagen, and he said to me, you've got to be kidding. Anything other than rat tail is a waste of time. But at this stage, here is the proof that this little cancer, it should be green, but I messed it up, it's in the duct, surrounded by all this elastotic tissue. So this actually happens, this elastotic tissue, before the cancer starts. So I said, all right, look at all these parallel lines here. And Andrew Miller said, forget them. They won't ever give you a picture. To my amazement, ordinary rat tail tendon, remember I showed you that what looked like a corn cob, gives a nice pattern. But there's the pattern I got from my breast tissue. Where did I get it? I learned how to extract pieces of duct from pathology leftovers. And this is a pattern of that collagen when it's aligned. Now, as I went away from the cancer, down along that duct, I reached a stage where there was a lot of fat. And this is what we call the normal breast tissue. You can see a kind of dark area there. Well, that's fat. So I'm down in the normal area of the breast. Coming in closer, the fat gets a lot weaker. And when I get right through it, I get a ring. This ring has the same spacing as Fessler had found using biochemistry. And if I get right up next to the cancer, I've got two rings. And that, amazingly enough, is the same picture as I had from fetal skin. So, what I've got right up near the tumour is fetal skin. And it was that that caused all the consternation when I did the work for Manchester, which was subsequently stolen by the group at Daresbury. So Professor Halley, of course, died in the meantime, had a heart attack, so we didn't proceed with that anymore. But this is colon cancer, and although I've already shown you the pattern we get from hair, this here is normal colon tissue. And the professor at Newcastle, down near Sydney, said to me, can you please tell us why people are getting a second cancer back in the same spot 2 years after? And 50% of those people who got those repeats were dying. So he gave me bits of the colon. This bit here was right down at the end, way away from the tumour. Just a tiny little bit he gave me off the end. And you can see it's not normal. This is right up against the tumour. It's very different. But that's still not normal. And so I said to him, why can't you take a bit more? The next set of samples we had from him were all normal down at both ends. And there were no repeat tumours from those. Just a little by the way. And when we started with the breast cancer, a doctor from Lithgow suggested to me that I should look at heart valves, myxomatous heart valves. There was some controversy about whether it was collagen, the ratios of collagen 1 and 3 and 5 were different. And I put this in because this is a normal heart valve, or at least the chordae tendinii, because these change if we get this myxomatous condition. And I was really trying to see if this was exactly the same as the allostotic tissue. This one was a 27-year-old who had a myxomatous condition, but it wasn't really very bad yet. I'm sorry that I had some earlier ones with only 1 or 2 little spots, but this is the one that I managed to find. This one is for a gentleman who was in his 60s, and his heart valve was about to collapse. You can see, I think, the massive patterns here. And some of these values are the same as we had in the breast tissue. So they were supplied by different hospitals. Now, I purposely wanted you to see this one, because if you remember this morning, we were talking about these rings that superimpose in breast cancer, superimpose in this and superimpose in that, but they don't bind. The substance that's causing that is free floating. It doesn't anywhere connect to the keratin or the collagen. Hence, when we dissolved it out, nothing came out, because what happened was the molecule itself was downgraded into something which probably appears way out. I might have a camera that would look way out there. So, but in insulin-dependent diabetes, it binds to the keratin in hair. And here we see a difference. This is normal keratin here. 7th order is large, this huge thing at the beginning. 19th order is smaller. 38th order is even smaller. And that's very clearly normal hair. Going up the top though, let's have a look. 19th order and 38th order have changed. This means that somewhere this sugar related bypass thing that's left behind is bound to the hair. Hence, if you're diabetic, you would know because your hair suffers greatly. But also, there's one other major point, and that's this one. You can see there's nothing down here. Up here we've got this great big peak. That tells us exactly where it binds, because that is the 626 nanometer reflection. And so it's binding to that point along the keratin. Oh, sorry. So you say to me, well, if it binds, then it should change the diameter of the keratin. And here we can see it does. These were humans. Have I wrecked you? No. Here are the diabetics, here are the normals. And the same repeat happens for the colony of baboons that they gave me samples from. So here we've got the one place in which the extra molecule binds to the keratin. And this led us to the structure of hair. Hair had been, the initial pictures of hair had appeared in 1935, and hundreds of papers came between there and when we did this in 1996. And nobody had gotten it right. Of course I had the advantage. I had these beautiful pictures from the synchrotron of normal human hair and all the animals of creation. In fact, we did 29 animals and we looked at every peak out here and plotted them up. And having gotten all these peaks, we then analysed them and we found that this was in fact not just one space, but all these different lattices. Collagen only has one lattice. This one had defied people's attempts to find it because A, they didn't have enough of reflections, and B, it was more or less a physicist or a mathematician who was going to put all of these together and therefore come up with the true structure. So this is a radial projection of an IF. We have 8 different IFs winding around the intermediate filaments, or these 8 IFs, intermediate filaments, winding around the hair. And there are all the spacings there. We've got the 46.7. This one here, which is from the top of that to the bottom down here, is actually the 626. See, it's been missed out in that picture. They travel at 7 degrees. Each one starts on one of these parallel lines, parallel axes, and above it is the one next door to it by 1 or 2 at the top. So that is the structure of keratin. You can see here, this one will meet 1, 2 over from it, up above it. And that is why we've got the beautiful crystalline pattern. Oh, that's 62.6. But biochemists had already said it's a hexagonal pattern. And in all the pictures we've taken, we actually got this pattern. So it means that one of these cylinders has to start on one of these areas and end up on a 1, 2 over up above. but the relationship has to be hexagonal. And if that is so, this is the structure we finally ended up with. We have alpha keratin starts off by a heterodimer. Two of those heterodimers wind together in a very tight pattern. That's a bit low down, I think, but never mind. And the radius of that is simply twice the radius of the beginning. All of these measurements can be gotten from those pictures. Then two of those wind together to form a tetramer. And I have all the dimensions there of those tetramers. Then 8 of the tetramers wind together in a slow helix around that intermediate filament. So, that's not the best picture, but anyhow, it's showing you how they wind around and leave a hole in the middle. That hole is where those strange molecules end up, not bound to anything we can see, not bound to any part of the helix, but could be bound to the tails that wobble around. Oh, I'm sorry, I keep going backwards. Put it down to old age. So, which way do I go? The only condition that can happen, and it's amazingly simple geometry, is that the distance apart of these intermediate filaments must be 3 times the radius of the intermediate filament. And I said, forget it. How could it ever be in nature? Come on. And knowing how you manage with all those different numbers, I didn't believe it. So I took back, these set of strange variations: porcupine quill, human hair, horse hair, echidna quill, and lingot wool. And look at the ratios. So I said, still might be a bit odd. And I then took 29 animals, including koalas and kangaroos and everything I could think of. And I have 29 threes. So it does happen in nature that we get such a strange coincidence. So that, I believe, has been my most exciting period of study. So the work here was done, and Professor Fugleman, who died only recently, was the only one who mentioned a spacing of 310. And I phoned him up and I said, where did you get that 310 from? Because I've got a very strange picture here that's got all these extra reflections, and they seem to be related to not 310, but 620. And he said, I'm coming in. So he drove in, didn't believe me, of course, I'm in a woman. So he sat down at my computer and he read through all those peaks on those patterns and came up at the end to say, yes, I was right. So we have our final kind of gift to science is the structure of keratin. This was done in 2006, and if you remember, the first picture was taken in 1935. It's not accepted yet, not by all my male colleagues. Oh no, she can't be right. Crazy, crazy woman. But one day they'll work it out. It won't, I probably won't be here to know it. Goodbye for now.
Does anyone have any questions?
Probably not. It's a bit way up.
was wondering if there's something about arterial cancers for which you do see the nice ring structures when you look at carrots again. Or do you
I haven't tried others.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I only get what I'm given.
Sure.
And, well, one day I might see some others.
Yeah,
But
that's curious.
I'm looking at an epithelial layer, aren't I, on the
Yeah.
skin?
That's right.
So that might be why.
Yeah, that's also what I was thinking, but I was wondering if there might be, say if you take some hormones with leukemias, if you...
I have seen a change for leukemia,
Okay,
but not in humans, in dogs.
okay.
I have studied a lot of dogs, and with a mammogram from, obviously, a dog with mammary cancer. There's a whole Swiss Alzheimer's. So, you know, it works.